Dun, 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 da, 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 da. Hi.
Howdy.
I'm just going to pin that sucker. All right. Hello. Welcome. Sorry, we're on Courtenay Taylor time today. Hi, guys. Super excited to see everyone. Just kicking JP around a little bit. How are you guys doing? So excited to be here today. We have an amazing guest. If you're just tuning in for the first time, we are Between Two Nerds, an offshoot of NerdsVote.com. We are your source for voter information, registration resources, and education. I am Courtenay Taylor.
And I'm JP Karliak.
And this is Between Two Nerds. And today we have an amazing guest, the beautiful, talented, and very kind Raphael Sbarge. You know him from Mass Effect as Cade Malenko, and also as Archie Hopper / Jiminy Cricket from Once Upon a Time. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get him on here. I'm picking him out of the crowd.
He's there, I just saw him.
I see him. He's going to be here any second.
Awesome.
There he is.
Hey,
Hooray.
it worked.
Hi, friends.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Hey.
You're talking to us all the way from New York, right?
Yes, I'm in New York City, the last hot spot, and so we've given up that honor. But yeah, I live in Harlem.
Yes, we have taken your crown. We've taken the
Yes,
COVID crown in California, which is horrifying.
we happily hand it forward. God.
Yeah, that's an honor we
Yeah,
don't want, but okay.
yeah,
Wear a mask,
yeah,
kids.
yeah,
Wash your
yeah,
hands, be safe.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
how are you? How are you staying sane in all of this? I know that you're always super busy anyway, but I can imagine you're doubling down.
I'm doubling down on keeping at least, look, we're all struggling, trying to sort of figure out a way to kind of keep our brains either not falling into despair or just boredom or, routine. The things that I've been doing is I found a wonderful yoga app called Down Dog, I think. And I do that in the mornings. I go for long walks in Central Park, which is very helpful. I have tried to limit some of my news at times because I just get so worked up. I know that this is, of course, obviously politically based, and I am a news junkie, but I sometimes just find myself spinning. I get upset and can't do anything with it. So I sometimes reroute that energy to something else. And then I've been working on projects as a director that have been have at least sort of a higher humanist value to them. So they have hopefully sort of given me something so I feel like I'm contributing. So that's, given me sort of during the day when I have projects to work on, I can put my mind there. So that helps.
Yeah,
Does that make
it's
sense?
been, yes, everyone's been very much climbing the walls in certain ways, but almost every one of our guests so far has talked about like, as insane as it is, and as like as much cabin fever as you have, it's amazing how much we have learned. Like technologically speaking, everyone's like up in their game. You're also a voice actor as well as a face actor, so you probably are, have your hands in both and directing. But I have gotten way better at my self-taping skills, my lighting skills, makeup skills, hopefully a little bit, and also doing, auditions and all kinds of stuff I never wanted to learn. Isn't that right,
Yeah.
JP? Yes.
Kicking and screaming. Yes, right.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
JP, where are you?
Where am I?
Yeah.
I'm actually probably a mile and a half away from Courtenay.
Beautiful
Sweet.
Glendale.
I'm in Glendale, but we quarantine separately, and so we have to come up with some innovative technological ways to make this all come together.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
No, it's lovely. It's lovely. It's lovely.
We were thinking like Zoom calls, we were thinking, Twitch and all kinds of stuff,
Yeah.
but this just seemed to be the easiest, and we could kind of size our heads kind of the same.
Just throw up an iPad. Yeah.
So yeah, it's
There you go.
better. Um,
Yeah.
And if you guys are just joining us for the first time because you're huge Raphael fans, I totally understand. But we are Courtenay Taylor and JP Karliak. We're from NerdsVote.com. We are also voice actors, which is how we know Raphael. And we basically are just trying to get the voter information and education out into the nerd space, specifically because nerds are awesome and they are smart, and we want y'all to vote. And so that's what we do. You can check us out on nerdsvote.com. Also below the pinned tweet is our little address there. And if you want to get one of our logo t-shirts, you can punch in logo 15 this week and get 15% off, just because everyone
Show
needs
them the t-shirt, Courtenay.
everyone needs swag. Here's our new latest
Woo!
edition, kind of limited edition 2021. But that's our logo with the broken glasses and stuff. And we're messing around with some new designs and stuff, so you can check it out if you're interested. Otherwise, you can just sit here with us for the next 40 minutes or so while we chat with Raphael. So that being said, are you eating anything crazy? Have you been everyone's talking about baking and making things, and I know that you have you're in close proximity to great food and also baking. So how's that going for you?
Yeah, I love to cook. I really enjoy cooking. So it's not hard to want to stay home. But my girlfriend ran a bakery, so I have the benefit of actually her baking skills, which has been fabulous. But also she no longer runs the bakery, but she's retired. But that's great. But yeah, I mean, I stopped drinking because it was so easy to kind of it's really a bad day. It's really a bad day. It began.
It's even a worse day than before. That's
right. It just began easy to kind of justify that slope. So I've done that, and I just feel better. I don't smoke, and not a drug person. But it's been important to kind of try and do whatever I can to try and look. We're all under extraordinary downward pressure, right? And what both of you are doing, obviously, again, is collectively aligning yourself with a cause, trying to make a difference. Reaching out to people, inspiring some hope and some possibility, trying to sort of really capture people's imagination so that we can actually take back our future, and laying track for, in this case, sort of a something positive, because really, 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 there's no getting around this. This is once in a century. I mean, this is as bad as it gets, and there doesn't, at least immediately, seem like there's an immediate kind of silver bullet or end in sight. So from that point of view, turn on the news any given night. I don't care what station you listen to. It's pretty tough. And from that point of view, whatever you can do to kind of both take that into account and then sort of make decisions to, balance out how difficult it is right now. I think that's important. I mean, I love what you're doing. How did you find your way to doing this?
Just talking with other voice actors, we spoke so much about, I was actually at Mexican food with a friend, another voice actress, Ashley Birch, and we were talking about how we can't even get, water cooler conversations to kind of talk to people because we all work in little glass booths by ourselves. Then I was thinking, maybe conventions. And I thought really what would be great is to kind of try and reassociate, how we feel about voting. And I got JP and another friend of mine, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, on as fast as I could because I knew I could not do this alone. And I'm so glad that I did because, miracle workers. But the idea that, when I was a kid, if I had been if Once Upon a Time had been on the air and I was able to have a conversation with you on social media or in person at a convention, then I would be able to if you had said, hey, you know, this is important, you know, voting matters, and we talked about why it does, and, you know, maybe you had a sticker or something like that, that it would sort of, I would go home and that would sort of shift how I felt about voting and make, you know, civic duty into like civic opportunity, and to have this thing in common with somebody that I really admire. And so I thought, you know, maybe I could enroll other people in doing that. And so here we are. And it's a way to have a really like open, interested, and curious conversation with people that you admire, and not, you know, knock down, drag out conversations like a lot of people have, but just, we really just wanted to focus on the importance of educated, consistent voting, not partisan, but just that like you have the ability to help steer our country with your vote.
Right. I mean, you know, I think about it this way. You know, sometimes if I'm a voter, I'm an active voter, it's important to me, and it's, you know, it's right, and it's something I feel strongly about. I feel strongly about that now more than ever based upon the circumstances we have. But, you know, if I could imagine people going, well, why vote? You know, I mean, like, it's all bad. It's not going to get any better. And what's the difference? And my vote's not going to make any difference. You know, if you think about the voting, the way we should have thought about the virus, which is that literally contact with one person can then spread and spread and spread and spread. And that, you know, the countries that essentially were able to really now have, you know, a couple of hundred deaths and a few, you know, maybe 500 infections did so because they were able to be proactive about that. This, I mean, I'm sort of mixing my metaphors here, but in the idea of sort of spreading, in this case, spreading the good, right? You can actually cumulatively, all of us kind of gather together and kind of find a way to actually make a difference, because it does spread. Your voice does matter. It does, it exponentially does matter. And it's so important. You know, you know, it's hard to imagine a time more urgent than now to be, you know, if you care about your future, or if you care about, even if you're not going to have kids, like your brothers or sisters or your nephews, you know, the kids of the future, your vote matters right now. If you care about, you know, things like the environment or women's issues or LGBTQ rights, or you care about, you know, immigrants, or you care about
The military.
Oh God, the military, or I mean,
Yeah.
there's just so many things that now, right now, partially because it's so polarized, but now more than ever, it matters. Last election, so many people sat out, and in addition to that, last election, the margins, because of the way the voting system goes, because it's, you know, it's not per vote, it's actually, you know, this electoral system. You know, states were won, major states, by 16,000 votes. It's not a lot of votes. That, you know, that's you know, if you've got 1,500 followers, or, you know, you know, you know, it's the margins are small, and so it really does matter. And so I mean, again, what you're doing, which is to kind of, you know, again, use the benefit of, in this case, hey, I've heard you on my favorite video game, or I've seen you on my favorite show, and then to kind of use that as a springboard or platform to kind of remind people, oh yeah, you know, I should probably vote. It really matters. It really, really, really matters.
And
Yeah, how about
that's
you,
really
Jay?
why we wanted to focus on nerds, is because I mean, that's our world, but also because if you're a gamer, especially, you know, that's what you do in these games. Like, you are a squad, you're a crew, you're a leader, and you solve problems, and you save people, and you know, you fight to the end of this game. And so those are the people that, you know, these creative, just involved people who are playing, you know, it's good versus evil, it's heroes, anti-heroes, it's all the stuff that really has a place in our world, that you could step away from that and into the, you know, real world, real life, and do the same thing, because your choices have consequences in games and also in real life. And so,
Right.
you know, we just thought what a great group of people. And there really wasn't a lot of people that were in the nerd space trying to get people registered. It was mostly sporting events, sports ball, concerts, stuff like that. So, but speaking of video games, if you guys do, and I know you have a huge amount of Mass Effect fans, what an amazing gift that keeps on giving, right? Mass Effect. If you guys have questions, throw them in the question box below, because we'll pepper Raphael with anything that you want to know.
Anything.
I actually have one right now. At Amy Way, Sassy Pants, Sassy Queen. How do you get your hair to look so cool?
I took a shower. I was downtown. It's about 1 million freaking degrees in New York right now. And I was racing home, and I took a shower, and I just threw. So I don't know. I don't do anything to it. I've sort of gotten to that place where I don't do anything to it. So thank you.
You just hold your head out the subway window. Just
no, I did shower. I didn't. I mean, I know you know. Just it's that time of the year where it's so like you walk out and you feel like you're walking into soup. You know, it's so humid in the
Oh yeah, so, like you just got slapped with like a warm towel.
Yeah, but Amy, thank you. It's very very kind. Thank you. I'm glad you like approve. Okay.
She
asks the best questions.
Raphael, getting back to voting, what's up until this point? Obviously, this year will be a little different, but what has been your typical voting habit? Do you typically vote by mail? Do you do it in person?
Yeah, great question.
Do you like vote early? What is your habit?
Right. I've enjoyed going to stand in line because it makes me feel like we're part of the democratic process, and there's something very ritualistic and I don't know, distinctly sort of American about it. You know, that makes me feel like this is democracy and this is good, and you know, and there's sweet people there generally who are the voter. They're people that check your name and they say, you know, and they're generally there because they care and they're lovely people. Anyway, so that process is nice. And, you know, this year I'll be doing it by mail. I think vote by mail is so important. You know, I love my post office. I mean, sometimes they drive me crazy, but I love my post office for all the things that they provide. And it's a service that they provide for hundreds, you know, was it 150 years, 127? Anyway, it's a long time. And it does so many things. I know the post office is running at a deficit, but I think it's, you know, valuable way beyond the actual receipt of mail. So I believe that we should continue to support, you know, mail delivery. But more than anything, I also, the nice thing about voting by mail is that you can't say, oh, I was working that day, or, oh, I was sick, or, oh, you know, my dog threw up on my homework or my voting thing. You know, you can send it in, and you can send it in early. You know, at this point, because of how polarized the election is, I think many people, I don't know a lot of undecided voters. I know some people who may be in the process of shifting, but I think at this point, people generally have a sense. So in my mind, particularly this year, I probably would vote early. Yeah. How about you, JP? How do you vote?
Courtney and I are both vote by mail people, and mostly for the reasons that you mentioned, that you know, we don't want to be derailed by our dog throwing up on our homework.
And yeah. God, do they throw up on stuff?
But yeah, I think just because of the nature of our work, because Election Day has yet to become a national holiday, note to Congress.
Mm-hmm. If you're listening, y'all.
Voting by mail is the most certain way that we're able to make sure that our vote is gets counted and gets out there. Also, yeah, there's something about getting the ballot a couple weeks in advance and getting the sample ballot and just sort of having the time to peruse over it and really do the research and make sure that we're informed in our voting. That's been awesome. You know, I do miss the going in person. But at the same time, I know myself enough to know that if I relied on the going in person, it wouldn't happen. So,
And
Right.
I'm the opposite because I fill out my ballot and then I forget to mail it, and then I realize that it's voting day. Sometimes I get it in the mail, but I have been known to be like, oh God, it's, and having to like jog in there with the envelope and be like, hi everyone, sorry I'm not voting, I'm just going up to the box, sorry. And then I get choices, which is important because some elections I'm super early, other ones I've had to walk in, but it's also nice to say thank you to the poll workers and, and see my neighbors. And so, but at least with the voting by mail option, I can do both as
Right.
opposed to.
And I travel a whole bunch, so it also guarantees that, I don't go, oh, I was in the wrong city. It's a plan ahead because it's important thing, and it's super easy, and it goes out and it's done,
Yeah.
and
with this year, there's lots of different polling places and parking. I mean, we've definitely, if you've been watching the news, you've been seeing people driving around looking for parking for hours or waiting in line and stuff. So even if you haven't voted by mail before, this might be a good year to start because it's a different deal this year.
Have you explained how people can register to vote online, or what they need? I mean, to vote by mail. Have you explained that to people?
We have a big push for it. In fact, we were going to put it up there, but see, it should have been the pinned comment. You can
I'm
actually.
doing it right now.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes. Not just T-shirts, but also you can go to NerdsVote.com. You can register to vote. You can go to NASS, which is the National Association of Secretaries of State, nass.org. And also,
our special link is, I just posted it in the chat below, bit.ly/nerdsathome. Will take you to our partner head count. And they have a great website that lists every state is a little bit different in the way that they handle vote by mail. So you can just look for your state and find out. Some states are just getting, I know in California and Oregon and several other states, we're just getting a ballot, which is awesome in these times. But there are some places that you have to register separately. So just make sure you check how your state is affected and respond accordingly.
And also know that registering to get your ballot is different. So make sure you give yourself time because some states require you to actually request it. Then they talk to you about it. Then you talk to them about it, and then you get the ballot. So early is good this year for sure.
Yeah.
And also, if you have any problems voting, I was talking to a friend last night. There is a phone number, 866-OUR-VOTE, that you can put in your phone right now so that when you are at the polls, if you have any problems with polls closing early, you can't get in the polls, they're closing and you're in line and they're saying you can't vote, you can call 866-OUR-VOTE. And they will help you navigate any problems that you might have. So there's tons of resources out there, not just us, but we like us. So you're getting greetings from the most interesting places. Sardinia.
Wow.
So many great people. You have a ton of huge. What do you feel? You have some amazingly devoted fans. You've managed to get into some properties that have like lifelong fans. And I know Nikki94 wanted to know, like, what was it like to play Archie? Was it fun being that still small voice? Do you have a favorite memory or particular part of that role that you really enjoyed?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Yes, I mean, I trying to run through, see which one would be here's the thing. I mean, when we first heard about this, which was that they were going to take, in this case, fairy tale characters and then figured a way to kind of turn them into a sort of a mashup with, together, and they said, well, they want you to audition for Jiminy Cricket. And I said, oh, well, do they want a voice match? I mean, based upon our work in voiceover. And they said, no, they just want you to keep it real. And I was like, oh, okay. So it was an interesting, like, oh, I got it. So anyway, I guess I went and auditioned, and the audition scene, which is in the pilot, is really all about this relationship with Archie to Henry, and Jared, who played Henry, was 10 at the time, although he wasn't in the room, of course. But I, I'm a dad, and it was an easy relationship to kind of find, and that was sort of a central pivot for so long. The Archie Henry relationship, kind of like a second dad kind of thing. That was wonderful. The experience of working on it when, obviously, when I read the script, and I'm sure both of you know as well, sometimes you read a script and you go, oh, this is incredible. But I thought, it's never gonna, it's too ambitious. It's never gonna work. I mean, it's too big. It's too fabulous on the page. It'll never translate, And we all went and watched the pilot, the cast. They invited us to this before the pickup, and they said, it looks good, but here's the, and we were all, the lights came up, and we were just all kind of, slack-jawed, just astonished by, it was even better than we even imagined. And the thing about that is that, and this is what was so exciting about it, which is perhaps similar to working with BioWare, in a voice capacity. Everyone involved in Once Upon a Time was absolutely at the top of their game. And again, similar to BioWare, right? These are people who do what they do unbelievably well, and they really care about it. And the caring is kind of where you go from sometimes good to great, right? It's like, you're willing to go those additional 10 yards, to really, and I think that what happened was when the show first came out, certainly, and everyone who sort of collected around the idea of this show, there was just enormous passion to make it something special. And you, again, saw it through all the departments. You saw it from the camera department, you saw it from the costume department, you saw it from the prop department, you saw it, from the visual effects department, from the acting department. I mean, everyone, it was more than just a job. It was like oh, wow, this is really special. And so that doesn't happen often. I mean, I've had a few of those experiences, but by and large, sometimes you just need to work, right? Not every job is, sometimes every job is a little special thing, but sometimes it's just a job, right? So, but when you, and maybe both of you felt this way, sometimes if you gather in a group and you could just feel the electricity. Yeah, I've had it in plays as well. You go like, oh my God, this is so much more than the sum of its parts, right? It just kind of comes together and it becomes like lightning in a bottle. That's what Once Upon a Time felt like. And now with the kind of the astonishing worldwide reach of these stories and how it's translated. I mean, American content doesn't always, the word is travel, right? It doesn't travel. It doesn't, American comedy doesn't do well in other countries. It's, it's unique. Things that are funny for us are not funny elsewhere. So in this case, these stories, these heroes' journeys, and these beautiful women and this beautiful man and these great costumes and the horses and the fairy tales and the drama and the how you always they always left you wanting more. Like I was convinced that they were drug addicts in their past life, because they always left you like, oh, it was so good, I can't wait to get more, I'm sorry, drug dealers is what I meant to say, not drug addicts, but my point is this, is that at the end of the day, you were hooked by the stories, and the stories translated through so many languages. And again, that's what's so cool. That's what also BioWare, again, because of the level of those developers and those stories. And BioWare, which is interesting, is brought more women into gaming than any other gaming company, particularly with Mass Effect, particularly because of these romances that we created. And then they were the first company also to actually sort of introduce the idea of same-sex romances, which was thrilling and exciting and amazing to be a part of. And there's so many people that I've met who've talked about how extraordinarily powerful that was in their life, and how they, men played women and women played men, and you could choose. It kind of gave a sense of freedom and no shame, and the ability to kind of explore something that was important to them, and that was magical and uplifting. And again, remarkable that a piece of content like a video game could then become actually so much more than just this kind of little certainly much more than where, video games started, which was, shoot, 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 bang, 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 kill more aliens. So, I mean, those all have their place, and that can be relaxing. But in this case, this was something else. So it was the relationships certainly in Mass Effect, and the relationships in Once Upon a Time that made that so special. And that's what was so fun and wonderful. I know it's a long answer, but I guess
no, it's a great answer, and it feels very much like they're similar in certain ways, like the fact that the stories are very human, but the circumstances are super fan. Of course, like we look back on Once Upon a Time now, and you're like, well, of course it would do great. Every culture has, fairy tales, right? And the opportunity for literally every department to go above and beyond creative, in creating worlds and costumes and looks of things and the light, like everything got to be like, you have shows where you're like, okay, we light this the same every week, and no disrespect or but there are certain projects that you really get the chance to kind of spread your wings and go as far as you can into your imagination. And that was certainly part of Once Upon a Time. And also, Mass Effect it wasn't just humans. There was humans mixed with all different kinds of races and sexualities, and and Jack was pansexual, for someone who threw that into the chat. But that you could really push the envelope in how you created characters, but the storylines were still germane to just the human condition. So I think that's like an amazing combination. And Becky X92 says, Mass Effect helped me come out to my friends and family.
Oh,
amazing.
Amazing.
Just amazing. I just, I'm sure you've had some of the same feedback, but it's been
incredible. I had a woman write me once. I mean, I've gotten lots and lots and lots of letters. I'm sure you have as well. But this one was just how she had said. I mean, one woman used to say that she used to sort of sneak down to the gas station and sit and romance Caden, away from her husband because she couldn't be in the same. That's sweet. But the this one was really about a woman who, like I said, lost her son, and she said, the only way that she had been able to actually manage the grief and the loss was through playing Mass Effect, and how important it was, and those relationships and those bonds that were formed. And I mean, I'm sure you've seen them. I mean, there is so much emotional attachment to these characters. The tattoos are forever, and I've seen some astonishing tattoos. And Seven's, faces of Caden or various other folks, or Commander Shepard. I mean, that's to the extent that these games have touched people's souls. And I, again, to be a part of that's look, I know that great actors bring so much to the party, and because I've heard sometimes the scratch tracks, maybe you've heard them as well. Scratch tracks are essentially the people that lay in kind of to get the timing for the animators and for the designers, and when they're not good, you can really tell the difference. And they spend 3 years on a game, right? 3 years, designing and creating all the various flowcharts to figure out, what that path to that experience is. So it's a combination, right? I mean, we get to inhabit them, but they create the world, So it percent. It's couldn't have done without them. So yeah.
And the same with Once Upon a Time. People, Eleanor C 2003 says, it's truly changed my life through the many positive messages it changed her for the better. So that's great. So you get to be part of both, and that sort of leads into one of the questions that we like to ask. Do you have, and I know the answer to this a little bit, but do you have like a cause or nonprofit group or anything that you support that's kind of your special, that's kind of close to your heart in all of this?
Yeah,
quarantine and beforehand, in the before times?
let me just let them know that I'm talking with you. We'll come find you.
Interview, Mom. Stop calling.
Yeah. Um, um, so I started a nonprofit about 11 years ago called Dreamwish, and Dreamwish was really an environmental nonprofit that was really about trying to actually support small local nonprofits in various cities around the country. And we opened chapters around the country, and the idea was essentially we gave people the ability to use our nonprofit status and then start a nonprofit in their city and do effectively pop-up nonprofits, and then raise money, and 90% of that money went right back into their community, to earth, air, water, sustainable education. And it was just a wonderful idea. The problem is, nonprofits require everything you have and then more. And I was acting and directing and being a dad, and I was taking care of my mom, who was elderly, and it was too much. My head kind of popped off, and I had to sort of put it into pause, because I just ultimately couldn't manage it all. It was doing well. It was doing wonderfully, amazing, incredible people I had met and were committed to this idea. And I felt very badly about kind of having to throw it into neutral. But what I then discovered was once you have a nonprofit, it's very hard to unwind the nonprofit. It's kind of like really easy to do a drive-through marriage in Vegas, but really hard to get divorced, right? So it's kind of similar. So what I was also then on a similar track was discovering, because we'd gotten some grant money to expand our educational program, and I had begun to make some movies, and the movies were doing quite well. And one of them was picked up by KCET, who's this giant local PBS station in Los Angeles with 22 million homes, and then another film got picked up by them, and then I pitched them another idea, and it just got nominated for an Emmy, which is thrilling. And there were so many things that suddenly I was like, oh wow, like, so this grant money, with my storytelling abilities and now my interest and my passions, I could actually use media to affect a change. And so what I've done is now change or pivot the purpose of Greenwish, which is now to, it's creating content with a conscience. So the money, for example, when I do a cameo, the money that I get on cameos go all to Greenwish, and that is essentially to try and support this idea. So we're working on various projects, which include environmental things, civil rights things. There's an amazing thing about food and food scarcity. There's another piece about male sexual abuse that I did with Anthony Edwards. There's kind of a range of topics that are all sort of humanistically based. Another piece about a female race car driver. Another piece about, a woman who's a divorce coach who really is trying to help women find their way. It's a range of different things, but all of these things are issues and ideas that are about sort of shining a light for people to kind of try and find their way. And obviously, again, as actors, we've been in the midst of stories, a part of stories, and so telling stories through film has become very exciting to me. And then telling stories through film that actually have a conscience, or actually, educational always feels like, watching paint dry. So, what I mean, like educational. So the idea was, how do you figure out a way to tell a story so that you can surprise people and capture their imagination? And that's what I'm trying to do. So that's what greenwish.com, you can, discover some of the things we've done. And that's what we've been focused on.
I love that. Everybody you have to innovate, and, we only have a limited amount of time and energy to give. And things, your circumstances change, and as long as you're innovating and continuing to put that out in the world, that pebble is still making those ripples, even though, it's a different way of getting it into the pond. It's great.
Yeah. There was a sweet thing that we did recently. Several years ago, I made the film about the LA River in Los Angeles. There's this crazy, they call it the LA River, and everyone laughs because it's a drainage ditch. It looks like a big concrete. So it's called the Concrete River. But the story of the LA River is an unbelievable story. it's sort of like a wait, what? And the what happened with the Army Corps of Engineers and why they did what they did, and all the kind of the ramifications of this thing that started all the way back at the origins of the city. Anyway, I made a film about that, and then this wonderful nonprofit called Friends of the LA River, and the fellow that essentially was the founder of it passed in April, and so of course we can't gather at the moment, so we decided to take the movie and create a virtual memorial for Lewis McAdams. And so the mayor of Los Angeles and the Congressman Adam Schiff and Juan Devis, who's the president of KCET, and Greg Lemley and Ed Begley, and all these people, we did Zoom interviews with them and then cut them into the film and then created this other film. And it's turned into this wonderful celebration of life. And you get to learn about the river. And so that's the kind of thing that we've been, if I could sort of explain it, I guess it's sort of, it's very easy for me to get passionate about because it feels like it's contributing. And when you ask, how do you survive? And at the moment, these are the kinds of things that are kind of like my rock holds up the ice face,
For sure. I think we both feel the same way of having NerdsVote be our sort of touchstone for just regularity, of being able to continue to push things out there and hope to make, a difference. And it sounds like we're like-minded, which is wonderful. You are answering many of the questions that are being asked, but Blue Star Wisher wants to know, could you have written, if you could have written a happy ending for Archie, what would you have written?
Oh, that's so easy. I would love for him to have fallen in love. I would love for him to have met someone who would have been, where we could sort of see Archie as more of a three-dimensional kind of a person. And Archie was a lovely, amazing, wonderful character and was there to help. And he had a sweet dog named Pongo, and there was, wonderful relationships with many of the main characters. But it would have been wonderful to have seen Archie, try and find his way in a romantic world. That's what I would have hoped.
I feel like just make a sequel to the show.
It's a lot,
Archie falls in love.
Oh, the thing that I actually went to the creators of the show and I said to them, I said, look, I have an idea. It was one of those shower ideas, like, oh my God. And I said, please take it and run with it. But here it is. Do a Once Upon a Time Christmas reunion. And he was like, that's a good idea. And of course, Disney Plus, and they've got all this, they've got to make more content. It just seemed like bring the characters back and create a new Disney, a new Christmas sort of special, go back to Storybrooke and do all the things and visit all the people. And oh my goodness, I think that would be a smash. So I told him, he seemed to smile. Who knows how these things go, but I'm putting it out there. I think it's a lovely idea.
And if you're a fan, guys, if you're a fan, here's the basic thing about social media. Fans have a voice in content creation. So if you want to see things, look at Mass Effect. They rewrote the ending for 3 because fans were pissed. So you guys have a lot of power if you, take Raphaels.
Take to the streets, right? Yes, absolutely.
Start writing letters.
Speaking of a lot of power, if you could pick, actually, I'm going to do this as a two-parter. If you could pick one of the characters of Once Upon a Time to be president, who would it be? And part 2, which actor do you think would make a great leader?
Oh, wait, from Once Upon a Time, you said would make a good leader?
Yeah.
So the character who would make a good president.
Great president, and which actual real life
cast member.
Wow, that's like a New York Times crossword puzzle question. Okay.
The Sunday crossword.
Yeah. That, like the hard, really hard one.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I
There's a
think that
vote for
Jennifer.
Pongo. There's a
Okay,
vote for
yeah,
Pongo in the.
Pongo is good in the animated version of right. I think Jennifer Goodwin would have been an incredible president, and I would probably vote for her. I would put her forward as a candidate of choice for lots of reasons, and also personally, she's such a level-headed, wonderful, kind, innately kind, and genuine person who not that there aren't other equally genuine and kind people on that set, there were, but there's always something very uh, steady and easy and even and just a good person who I just felt always was looking out for others and cared that people were taken care of and just good people. Her and Josh are I mean, talk about a fairy tale, man. The story, like they met in the pilot, and then of course they got they kind of fell in love, and then they made history. Now they've got two babies. But it's really really a fairy tale. And they're both, I mean, like really straight up like good great folks. I mean, they could be either of them could be president, or they could either of them could be in this case vice president or president. I would vote for them. How's that?
I think Pongo is going to be vice president, so they can't.
All right.
You got to pick.
There you go. Certainly dog in chief. There you go.
Just first partner.
That's right. He can be first partner. So you and they've made beautiful babies, and you have made beautiful babies. We ask people, and I have to keep an eye on the time because we have about 8 more minutes or so. I'm famous for not watching the time when I am the one driving the iPad, and then we get cut off. So I just need to make sure that I keep an eye out. So we have about 8 more minutes, guys. So if you have questions, throw them in the question box. And you can register to vote by mail at the address in our pinned and JP Karliak's pinned tweet. But when you go to the polls, and I think you've answered this somewhat, but when you go to the polls, we like to ask, who are you voting for? And not the candidate, but who do you have in mind when you're casting your votes? Who do you want your vote to affect in particular with that vote?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, look, the things that matter to me are the things that I'm voting for are all about, the core values that I have, or about, the environment, about, climate change, about women's rights, about, civil rights, about, LGBTQ rights. There are immigrant rights. There are kind of issues that I believe through the aperture of that president, whoever he or she is, can it come. I mean, look, was it someone said that every decision that comes to the president's desk, by the time it comes to the president, is the tough decision. And at that point, then that decision then gets filtered through that individual, and that person has to decide, dig down and figure out, which way they want to go. What's the and so then their moral core, their moral center, then becomes so imperative, because those decisions then fall on kind of how they look at the world, what's important to them, what really matters. And so those are important to me. Yes, of course, the economy matters. Yes, of course, jobs matter. Yes, of course, there are, trade, international trade matters. And yes, it's important to sort of, that certain countries follow and abide by, treaties and civil rights ideas. And at the moment, we're in America's in some pretty tough water, and I'm looking for some leadership that is calm, cool, collected, and can actually work with other people, women and people of color who have often not been represented in administrations, to be able to sort of bring them into, some of the decision-making process and some of the kind of again, so that more of the spectrum of the people who live in the United States can be represented. That's the hope. We are living in a different world, and there's been lots of change and lots of calls for change. Those calls for change have risen, I think, with so much ferocity. I think because people don't feel heard, and I that feeling of not being heard, that feeling that things are not changing and not getting better, is why I'm not justifying violence, because I never think that that's a good answer, but I certainly understand the frustration. But a desire to be heard and to for someone to make decisions that consider the future and consider more people than it seems like it does just at the moment. There's a lot of attention going to sort of one segment of the population. That's my humble opinion. I'm not I'm not an expert. I'm not a talking head. I'm just an actor. I play a therapist on TV. There you go. I don't want to advocate for anyone, but in this case, my hope is that we can find someone or someones who really are thinking a bit more in a more egalitarian way, and really consider more people than just one specific segment of the population.
Yeah, and that's so important too. So much of the things that are being protested right now are really come down to voting in local and state elections, and it's so important. People get really excited about the presidential election because there's lots of news coverage and it's high stakes and stuff. But a lot of the stuff that people are talking about with allocation of police funds, the type of policing, there's obviously like people want a federal database, things like that, but so much of it is about where you live. And so we like to stress the importance of voting in every election, every time, not just every 4 years, and that it's not a set it and forget it situation, that you put somebody in office or you vote to put someone in office, whether or not they make it in there, and whether or not your person gets into office, it's really important to continue to make your voice heard, not just through your vote, but through communicating with your reps. And in this day and age where people are on Twitter, they're totally available with social media, and that you can call, anytime after hours, reach out to your reps. There's many opportunities, besides voting is obviously a super important one, but that you take advantage of the options that you have to make your voice heard, because it's so important.
Yes, I probably have to go in a moment, but I have one thing I just want to sort of, this is just a quirky thing that just happened, but I think it might be sweet for a bunch of fans. So, one of the things that I've been doing, of course, is cleaning closets and trying to kind of like go through things that's like, oh God, I really should clean that drawer out. And I went in this drawer yesterday and I found this. When I auditioned for Once Upon a Time, I actually asked my girlfriend at the time if she had any glasses that I could wear for the audition, because I thought, I didn't really like, and she gave me hers, and I found them. And so these are the glasses that I wore on the show, and I just found them last night because I haven't seen them in a while. But they're so sweet because they were, they're mine, right? And they don't usually let you use your own glasses, particularly because they're vintage glasses and they're hard to duplicate, like if you fell and they cracked or something. But these are them. So anyway,
Oh,
it's a sweet little.
Actually a perfect segue, because the way that we usually sign off the show is we ask our guests to sign off as one of our audience's favorite characters. So since you have glasses, would you be so kind to sign off our show and tell people to get out and vote as Archie?
Yes.
So
yes. So it's my sincere hope and desire and wish for you to find your way to vote. whatever way that you can, whether you do it by mail or whether you actually go in and meet the sweet people who are there waiting to greet you and take your vote, but vote. It's important, more important than it's ever been. And these two sweet people who come together and dedicated their lives and their time to do this also feel passionately about you. And I hope that you'll take it to heart. Pongo wants you to vote as well. Go Pongo. Pongo for president. Okay.
Thank you.
Bless you. Thank you so much.
much.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Sweet.
So
All right.
awesome. Thank you for coming on and joining us. It's great to see your face.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you both.
appreciate it.
Nice to meet you, JP. And take care, Courtenay.
Thanks so much,
Yeah.
Raphael.
Yeah, my
And thanks
pleasure.
everyone for joining us.
Yeah, thank you all. Sorry if I couldn't answer your question, but I'll find me on Instagram or on Twitter, and I'll be happy to try and help. Yeah.
And also greenwish.com.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, right. Thank you. All right. NerdsVote. All right. Take care. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye. Take care.
Make sure that you guys, if you are not registered to vote yet, you can also hit us up at nerdsvote.com. You can get our groovy t-shirts there in the store as well. All the proceeds go to our important work, which is getting people to vote, getting people educated to vote every time. And thank you so much. We will have a new announcement for our next guest. We are moving. We are late night now. So Tuesdays, like dinner time. But we are moving to 6 p.m. on Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, this coming Tuesday. So set your alarms. We'll still keep the Thursdays at 2 o'clock, but we wanted to make sure that you guys could get access to guests that could only do nighttime. So that's what we're doing. So 6 p.m. Pacific on Tuesday. We'll announce the guest on Saturday. Anything else, JP?
I think that's about it. Thanks
Okay.
so much for coming, guys. We will see you in the even time on Tuesday.
Bye. Thanks.